Well, the events today, I'm reminded of some lessons that I learned as a young boy. My Uncle Caesar, my mother's brother, was a very successful grain merchant like his father and his grandfather. He was visiting one time and he said to me, "Young Albert, you are so very good with mathematics. I thought that maybe you could help me with a very important business decision." And I was so excited that he had chosen to consult with me about his business. I was glad that he asked. He explained that he was playing chess with another very, very wealthy businessman who had recently acquired many, many acres more land for grain crops, and that if he could get a very large loan from my Uncle Caesar, that he would make an unusually large payback of grain. He said this, looking at the chessboard with the 64 squares. He said, "I would commit to putting 1 grain of wheat on the first square and then doubling it to 2 grains, the second square, and doubling that again, 4 grains, the third square, and so on. And I would fill that entire chessboard and who knows how many rail cars of grain in exchange for the very large loan that he wanted from my Uncle Caesar." So my uncle asked me if I would do the mathematics and see if such a thing would be a good business deal for him. And I did. He gave me lots of time to do the maths, and I multiplied, doubling 1 square after another for 64 squares. And I wrote back to my Uncle Caesar, "Do not trust this man, because at the end of the 64 squares, he would have to provide enough grains of wheat to cover the entire planet of the earth, many feet deep, in order to meet his promise of doubling 64 times. It's an enormous number. And with that, I learned the enormous possibility for the exponential factor of doubling. Even a loan of 7% doubles the amount in 10 years. But if you double every day, 64 times, it's enormous. Well, sometime after that, a large package arrived at the house. And it was addressed to me. I was so happy. It was from my Uncle Caesar. And I greedily opened that package. And it was some kind of machine. And then I realized, it's a steam engine. And then I heard my mother in the background say, "Oh, no, no, no. He cannot have that. That's so dangerous." And she was right. For many years, steam engines, the large steam engine and the small steam engines were so dangerous. And here's why. They would overheat and explode with the pressure of steam. Or they would run faster and faster and race away so that the machine itself would explode, throwing off pieces of metal. This is a very dangerous job to handle steam engines. But my other uncle, Jacob, was in the room, and he said, "Let me have a look at that little steam engine." And he examined it for a while, and he told my mother and my father, it's okay, it's perfectly safe. You see, this model steam engine is like the modern steam engines, and it has a couple of features. One, if the pressure gets too high and the steam builds up, instead of exploding, there's a relief valve that safely lets the steam out before the boiler itself explodes. And then the other feature that was equally important is a device called a governor. It's really the first kind of thinking machine. It would sense the revolutions per minute, the speed that the steam engine was going, and when it was going too fast, it would slow it down, and too slow, it would speed it up. It would regulate an even flow of the energy into mechanical energy. And I think of these things because our economic situation could perhaps be helped by these two ideas. One, having some kind of safety relief valve, and I think maybe that has happened, but all the governments are giving the banks extra money since they are talking about exploding the financial system. But I do not see a governor, a regulator, so that these economic situations do not get out of hand. And so I think perhaps these ideas are relevant today, and it goes to show that everything that really counts cannot be counted necessarily, and everything that can be counted does not necessarily really count. Goodbye.